Hello, everyone. Jerry Nadler spoke at the impeachment hearing on Thursday in regards to a question posed by Senators Bennett, Menendez, and Schatz. This is that question.
If the Senate accepts the President's blanket assertion of privilege in the House impeachment inquiry, what are the consequences to the American people? How will the Senate ensure that the current President or a future President will remain transparent and accountable? How will this affect the separation of powers? And in this context, could you address the President's counsel's claim that the President's advisors are entitled to the same protections as a whistleblower?
So firstly, we know this is coming from Democrats, so let's not beat around the bush. We know this is a leading question, especially because it's talking about the results of the president's actions, already assuming that what they are there to prove in the impeachment effort, being abuse of power and obstruction of Congress, is already a matter of fact. Jerry Nadler gets up and starts talking about what the House has been up to in their votes and their reasoning for voting for the articles, calling Trump as acting as a form of monarch, circumventing the congressional power of subpoena. He continues to explain that because Trump announced that he would defy all subpoenas brought forth by the House, that the residual effect on the public could be that for the future of the U.S. government, the executive branch can exert this kind of authority and proceed to act with impunity, regardless of congressional oversight. I am paraphrasing this instead of showing it to you because this isn't really the crux of the issue yet. Nadler proceeds to then take the time he has to answer a question not directed to him that Senator Collins had asked yesterday. The question of mixed motives. This I will allow to play out and then comment when appropriate.
And they asked about the question of mixed motives. How do you deal with a deed, with a president who may have a corrupt motive and a fine motive? And how do you deal with it? And Professor Dershowitz said, well, you have to look at you have to mix, you have to weigh the balances. Nonsense. Nonsense. We never, in American law, look at decent motives if you can prove a corrupt motive.
Hold here. So what Nadler has just gone off on a tangent about is that the U.S. law has a precedent to only try and find a corrupt motive and then ignore the potential for there to be another circumstance. Curious. I mean, very well understandable from the position of a prosecutor. Of course, their job is to peg the defendant as guilty, so it is no wonder that they would assume that the person is devoid of another motive. Only a corrupt motive, as Nadler says. Now, I want to mention, after sitting on this thought for a while, I have figured that this wasn't as shocking a revelation, but instead a scathing illumination of our justice system. Of course, a prosecutor wants to prove their point, it's their job. But what's terrifying is that means that the U.S. justice system does not run based on its name, but instead on the idea of all in a day's work. Everyone should be terrified in the U.S. about this. Because in this circumstance, Nadler, one of the House managers involved in impeaching a president, is not seeking truth. He is seeking the day's end and a paycheck. Let's let him continue for a bit.
If I am offered a bribe, and I accept the bribe for corrupt motive, I will not be heard in defense to say, oh, I would have voted for the bill anyway, it was a good bill. You don't inquire into other motives. Maybe you had good motives. But once the corrupt motive and the corrupt act was established, there is no comparison. All of this is just nonsense to point away from the fact that the president has been proven beyond a shadow of a doubt, and the defenders don't even bother really to defend. They just come out with distractions.
Ooh, beyond a shadow of a doubt. Even when you have just actively said to ignore possible decent motives. And isn't it so convenient that you can get up there on the podium, no one can stop you, as you go rattling on into this absolute tangent? I mean, lucky for me, since I'm making a video off it, so props to me, I guess. But maybe this is why later on in the trial dates, Jerry Nadler and Adam Schiff had a race to get the final word. But hey, just my guess, maybe Adam didn't want him to keep talking.
He's been proven beyond a reasonable to have abused his power by violating the law to withhold military aid from a foreign country to extort that country into helping his re-election campaign by slandering his opponent. Corrupt? No question. Violation of the law? No question. Factually? No question. They don't even make a real attempt to deny it. Everything is a distraction, and the one chief distraction is once you prove a corrupt act, that's it. You never measure the degree of maybe had decent motives too. So Professor Dershowitz, in talking about that, in talking about the absolute power of the presidency, was just absent from American law or any kind of Western law.
I want to go back to the original issue for which I wrote this. The idea of mixed motives that ended up coming up all throughout this day's hearing. The idea that a prosecutor only has to establish one malicious motive to render all other possibilities in a case irrelevant is blatantly terrifying. To have one, the head of the House Judiciary Committee, be the one to testify to this is even worse. And two, before the Senate, while feeling vindicated, is even more so disturbing. But this is not a surprise to anyone living in the United States, where Title IX cases exist, where essentially tribunals of university officials are convened with as much or as little evidence as they personally wish, to judge the accused with terribly vindictive prejudice, or the world of Me Too, woke culture, cancel culture, baseless accusations of racism, sexism, xenophobia, National Socialism. Yes, see what I did there. We should not be shocked at the idea that someone who, quote-unquote, proves a malicious motive is guilty. It's all pretty common. The worst part is that this is coming from one of the people seeking out justice, seeking out the truth, who stands upon the ivory tower looking down to us citizens and has the gall to tell us that they are doing this for our benefit. None of you should believe him. No one should believe anyone on the House manager team. No one who speaks as Jerry Nadler did there, so candidly, has the concern of being caught doing exactly what he is professing to doing, seeking a verdict, not justice. Prosecutors need to establish a verdict. Defendants need to disprove the prosecutor. None of them have to be right to win. But one is evidently using dirty tricks, whereas the other doesn't necessarily have to. You be the judge. That's all I have for you guys today. If you liked the video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video. I didn't see anyone mentioning this at all. Out of all the news YouTubers and news agencies, no one brought attention to this, so please, do share. I hope you all have a good one. I'll see y'all soon.